Hello everybody, welcome back to more Deadtime Stories, moving on to the first sequel in the series, the only sequel in the series, and one of the coolest covers, I think, and one we disagree with, The Beasts of Baskerville, and you have the other one here,
Trapped
in Tiny Town, which is the sequel to number one, Terror in Tiny Town. Yeah. And these were cool because as a kid, this is the last one that I had from the Scholastic magazine, so I'd never read the sequel as a kid to the first book. And it was not as exciting as I hoped it would have been.
as you wanted it
but
to be.
before we get to that, we have to do Beasts of Baskerville.
Which I like.
You like?
Let's talk about this. This is Goosebumps.
Exactly. I like it fits the time frame, the 90s. That's a little bit cooler and creepier.
That is awesome.
But the tone of the story within that cover
Yes,
is a Goosebumps
it is
like style.
But,
exactly. So it fits it more.
But I think overall these are much darker than Goosebumps, and
If
I saw this book on the shelf as a kid, I would have been like,
But this
all
is
over
more
that.
like a B movie horror movie you find at the dollar store kind of cover.
And I like
That's
that.
like
And that's what I like about it.
that's cartoony Goosebumps.
All right, this is number 13. Lucky number 13. Legends aren't always a lie. Everyone in Baskerville knows about Jimmy Leeds. In fact, Adam Riley and his friends have been telling the scary stories about Jimmy for years. Stories they don't really believe. After all, how can anyone believe in a hairy half-human beast with horns and hooves? But the legend of Jimmy Leeds isn't just a story. When all the kids in the neighborhood decide to have a giant campout, Adam and his friends learn much too late that the streets of Baskerville aren't safe, especially after dark. One by one, Adam's friends start disappearing into the night. At first, Adam thinks it's some kind of joke, until he follows the hoof prints into the woods nearby, and finds himself face to face with Jimmy Leeds, the Beast of Baskerville.
Dun, dun, dun. I thought this was, unlike the Planet X one, this was successful in its twist. Because it had a double twist ending.
Yes.
And it's one of those that as a kid, it probably would not have seen the second part of the twist coming. Like, you know what I mean? One or the other. Like, would have assumed. And they both happened, and it worked. And that's, for a kid's horror story, and if it relies on a twist, the twist needs to work. Like, a 8-year-old shouldn't be able to figure it out. And I feel like an 8-year-old wouldn't see the double twist coming. So that makes it a worthwhile story.
I love this. The kids in this are great, and for an adult to write that many very individualized kids with very distinct personalities in such a short amount of pages is really, really well done. I could tell you, if you say Dee Dee, I know which one that was, and you can figure out which one it was, and in a very short period of time. That's really, really impressive. This is a very short book, but I loved it. I love the local folklore of it. I loved the mom. I loved everything about it.
It builds that, and it builds especially for a kid's story, again, very short period of time. Reading this as a kid, you get the feeling of, I'm afraid of the monster, then I'm sympathetic and feel sorry for the monster, and then you get a second twist and I fear the monster again. And as a kid, that little bit of an emotional roller coaster in that short story, that's really engaging. Yeah. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that a lot of children's fiction doesn't do well, where it feels so one note and it doesn't treat children as being as intelligent as they actually are.
Yeah.
So I feel like this does a good job of doing that.
And it's funny. I think part of nailing their personalities, it was funny.
It's funny.
There was a lot of humor in this.
The kids screwing with each other. And
and it was very realistic. That is what that group of kids would do. And I would never have done that. Would you have done a tent camp out?
We did do tent camp out.
I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Where you're going out in the woods and.
Yeah, and then my older cousins came and we didn't know they were coming there, and they tried to scare us in the tent.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Were you frightened?
No.
Did you scream like a little girl?
No.
Aw.
No, we were 3rd grade, I think 4th grade.
You're a liar. You did. You totally did. But I like this a lot. Would you give it?
I give it an 8.
I gave it an 8.5.
Yeah. So it's one of the higher rated ones.
Yes.
And then moving into one of the not higher rated ones, I think you didn't like this one either.
I wasn't a fan of the first one. I'm not a fan of dolls. I don't like dolls personally.
You don't like the toys come into life type stories.
I like what's it called? Small Soldiers.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one.
That's funny.
That was a good movie. I'm not such a fan of this. Welcome back to Tiny Town. Willie and Zach are taking a train ride to Zach's house when something unthinkable happens. The boys make it The boys never make it to their destination. Instead, they get shrunk and are transported to Tiny Town. Tiny Town isn't a real city, of course. It's the train set village in Willie's basement. Unfortunately, Willie and Zach have already had one battle with the little people who live in it. Now they're in for another. The problem is, this time, the little people aren't so little anymore, and the visitors definitely aren't welcome. Willie and Zach have to escape. But how?
Creative. It is a creative idea. It starts like the beginning of this is literally the last couple of sentences of this. So it's right after an immediate sequel, and it changes in it being that they are now toy size and they're living in this toy world that they created, trying to escape, and everyone's after them. And it's a creative idea. It's a cool thing as a kid thinking about the big playset, whether it's Legos or Playmobil or just action figures or whatever, and being able to go into that little world that you created and actually journey around in it. It's a cool idea. As a kid, I would have liked that. It just felt, didn't do a lot with the premise.
Yeah, I feel like of all the things that it did, like I think there should have been some allies. Mm-hmm. There should have been some toys that liked them.
Yeah,
and there weren't any toys that liked them.
Wasn't complicated enough. Yeah.
I feel like this, at least, like, okay, the lightning struck, it brought them to life, okay. This was a little bit far-fetched, and I like far-fetched things, but there was this little bit of, like...
Some of the humor, because it did, like, one of the kids being married to his little sister's Susie Sparkle doll, and, like, that was... It was very much trying, to go for a humorous tone, but it never quite landed as much as some of the other ones.
Yeah.
I feel like it wasn't as... Even as a kid, it's like, a boy at that age, like, oh, cooties, being married to the Barbie doll, and like, but he just didn't.
He legitimately gets sick.
He threw up.
He actually threw up, having to kiss Susie Sparkle, which was very strange.
Some of the humor didn't, I don't think, really land, and it had a really, really stupid ending.
Yeah, I didn't like the ending.
Really bad ending.
I really didn't.
So
I gave it a 5.5.
I give it a 5. It was a solid 5.
Yeah, it was a difficult decision. I really didn't like.
Yeah, of all the ones in the series to get a sequel,
yeah, exactly.
It was like one of the weaker ones to begin with, and this was weaker than the original. Like, this was a better story than this one, but this one had a more interest. This premise has been done to death.
Yes.
This premise has not been done as often. It's not as
I just wanted more motivation for Hurley, and like some of the other toys. Like, it's not like these kids were abusing the toys. Mm-hmm. It's not like they like when you think of like Sid from Toy Story, like just like massacring
they were
the toys.
Just blanket evil for no reason. The toys.
There was no reason for that.
Yeah.
And it's not like they were doing it to become alive. Mm-hmm. They had a motivation. They were just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
And it kind of lost me.
Yeah, but that's the comparison to Beavis and Baskerville. Like I said, stories that treat children as being able to comprehend more complexity are better because kids can.
They can, yeah.
So it was very dull. Anyway, so after that, move on to the next one, including one that was a little more difficult to get our hands on.
The Saga.